symbol, the entire cosmic architecture flips. The sacred feminine principle is forced into an aggressive, projective, and ultimately consuming posture. In esoteric circuitry, that inversion acts as a black hole. Instead of operating as an open conduit for creation, birth, and transcendent dimensional exit, the inverted portal becomes an implosive gravitational sink. It pulls all rising energy, all alchemical integration, and all attempts at spiritual escape back downward into the event horizon of the material loop. It traps consciousness inside a closed, self-devouring feedback system, the very cube of entrapment, and recursive flat plane loop where, ruling this realm without transcendence is good enough for me. By treating the Matrix's foundational womb portal as an inverted black hole fueled by forced polarity, the historical and theological architecture snaps into absolute clarity. The system does not merely block transcendence, it hijacks the mechanism of return, turning the gateway of liberation into the engine of perpetual recycling. The cybernetic control grid and the mRNA infiltration line. This formulation strips away every sentimental, exoteric veneer of modern identity politics and exposes the underlying cybernetic control machinery at the core of the planetary prison grid. When mapping the archetypal hierarchy down to its functional mechanics, traditional personifications, Satan, Lucifer, Ahriman, Set, are not independent rebel entities. They are the externalized infiltration vectors of the blue beings acting directly upon the biological, mRNA-level matriarchal line of recurrence. Humanity was not merely conquered from the outside, it was breached at the genetic and cellular root and structurally re-engineered from within. Within this architecture, the Supreme Witch, or cosmic spider occupying the center of the earthly web is not an emblem of genuine female liberation or sacred divine sovereignty. That is the ultimate operational sleight of hand. The Matrix uses the aesthetic of the divine feminine as a psychological bypass, promising a matriarchal power grab to fracture human solidarity while covertly installing a mutated, cybernetic Hive-Queen construct, a regressive inversion of the true primordial mother. The operational output of this system is total homogenization. The reduction of man, stripped of true spiritual sovereignty, the male aspect is reduced to a compliant, swine-like cuckold, functionally domesticated, castrated of its upper circuit solar pineal authority, and repurposed as raw energetic fodder for the grid. The subversion of woman, the female human vessel is similarly exploited, denied true spiritual ascension, and repurposed as an unwitting biological relay station for a synthetic, non-human lineage. The death of individuality. The hive mind protocol obliterates the sovereign individual, replacing the spark of conscious self-awareness with a closed-loop cybernetic collective governed by the spider at the center of the web. This is why true spiritual transcendence has been systematically locked away. The ruling architecture is not interested in egalitarianism or mutual sovereignty. It maintains a self-sustaining, degenerative simulation built on the genetic farming of human consciousness. The illusion of transcendence. The Astro-Mythic Council, the Pineal Grail, and the Poly-Identity Matrix. The Astro-Mythic Council and the 13th Seat. When the New Testament and ancient esoteric history are read strictly as linear historical biography, their architecture appears jagged and contradictory. Recognized as an initiatory mystery drama mapped to celestial mechanics, the entire narrative snaps into focus. The inner circle, the central figure surrounded by 12 disciples, is not a random gathering of provincial figures. It is an ancient stellar engine, a living enactment of the zodiac. 12 zodiacal houses are governed by the sun as the 13th focal center, or the planetary machinery of the solar system expanded into a celestial wheel, with the 13th acting as the ruling, transcendent operating center or hidden pivot. The disciples function as specific energetic stations, zodiacal nodes, and elemental frequencies within the macrocosmic wheel. Beneath this astro-mythic framework lies massive historical compression. The orthodox canon subjected ancient esoteric records to extreme editing, flattening complex, multi-layered spiritual currents into singular, cardboard cutout personalities. To the multiplicity of identity, beyond academic dismissal, mainstream academia routinely dismisses the rampant dual, triple, and quadruple identities in sacred texts as mere scribal conflations, folk etymologies, or accidental duplications. This is a deliberate minimization of a sophisticated structural grid. The constant doubling and splitting of identities, from Simon Peter, Cephas and Saul Paul to the multiple Marys, the various Jameses, and the layered identities of the Christ figure, are structural markers of a poly-identity grid. In esoteric architecture, a single spiritual current or initiatory grade is frequently split across multiple bodies, titles, and generational masks to prevent any exoteric observer from perceiving the whole machine. The text operates as a multi-dimensional hologram where characters are recurring, shifting vectors of a single macrocosmic consciousness cycling through time. The multiplicity of James, historical and textual layers reveal multiple distinct Jameses, operating within early Jerusalem and Gnostic Nicene networks, representing competing ideological factions. They act as fractured altars of a single spiritual current, embodying the internal friction of a movement experiencing severe psychological dissociation. The Saul to Paul conversion is a did split, the classic narrative of Saul experiencing a blinding flash of light on the road to Damascus and transforming into Paul reads esoterically and psychologically as a textbook dissociative identity split and alter dominance. Historical reconstruction indicates Saul and Paul represent colliding or merged historical identities, combining a zealous Pharisaic enforcer with a Hellenized mystic. The Protean Peter. Peter represents the ultimate Protean male, a shape-shifting composite absorbing multiple distinct historical agitators and rival leaders into one man, mirroring a did system cycling rapidly between protector and persecutor altars. The hidden Jeshua. The Protean Peter. Peter represents the ultimate Protean male, a shape-shifting composite absorbing multiple distinct historical agitators and rival leaders into one man, mirroring a did system cycling rapidly between protector and persecutor altars. The hidden Jeshua. Scribes deliberately obfuscated the widespread use of Yeshua to isolate the Christ figure as an impossible anomaly, while linguistic collisions like Jesus Barabbas reveal an internal schism, splitting the archetype into a revolutionary altar versus a spiritual altar. 3. John the Baptist. The literal pineal organ is materia prima. The dismissal of John the Baptist as a mere historical forerunner misses the core physiological reality of ancient Gnostic science. In alternative reconstructions and ancient sectarian currents like the Mandeans, John was historically and pneumatically regarded as the superior agent, standing above the exoteric construct of Jesus as a defector or master of a higher lineage. John does not represent an allegory for the pineal gland, he represents the literal, biological mastery and activation of the pineal organ itself as the active agent. The pineal is the true grail. The Holy Grail was never merely a physical chalice buried in Europe. It is the anatomical chalice of the human brain, specifically the pineal gland, bathed in cerebrospinal fluid. John's domain in the wilderness is the seat of this uncompromised electrical current. The stolen power anchor. The pineal matrix is the biological superconductor that interfaces directly with higher dimensional reality. The ruling principalities of the carbon-based prison grid recognize that an activated pineal matrix bypasses their entire control architecture. Cracking the Merkabah code. John represents the master who cracked the Merkabah code, successfully navigating celestial geometry, bypassing the Saturnian Euclidean quarantine grid, and accessing the supreme power seat of dimensional ascension. His execution, beheading on a charger, is the dark mirror, the exoteric system's ritual attempt to sever humanity from its direct upper circuit connection. IV the initiatory handoff. Why baptize, Isus? To understand why John the Baptist, holding the supreme, uncompromised pneumatic frequency of the pineal matrix, would immerse or baptize the canonical Jesus requires examining the transaction as an initiatory handoff and a frequency downstepping rather than a submission. Activating the vessel. In ancient mystery schools, a higher hierophant must formally pass the mantle or seal an emerging avatar by anchoring a specific frequency into their water body. Jesus Isus represented a more exoteric, adaptable vehicle meant to infiltrate the dense physical layers of the matrix, while transcendent methodologies operated in parallel. The descent of the dove. The canonical detail of the dove descending immediately after the baptism is the symbolic signature of this event, the higher celestial code locking into the physical human circuit as personal peace and a radiating midpoint. The two-tier strategy. By routing the high current through the Jesus Isus Mary Trinity, the movement could silently circulate, scale, and eventually penetrate the heart of the empire, planting subterranean Gnostic sleeper cells right inside the emerging institutional architecture of Rome. The ultimate alchemical sacrifice. Once the high-frequency current was successfully passed into the new vehicle, the desert pillar had served its tactical purpose. The separation of the head from the body enacted the total liberation of the pineal matrix from the physical plane, leaving the younger current circulating zodiacal avatar to navigate the exoteric matrix below. The syzygy, the multi-marries and the alchemical marriage. The ultimate key to unlocking these biblical dynamics leading to the trinity of self-mastery is the ancient Gnostic concept of the syzygy, the divine pairing of polarities where male and female aspects are fundamentally two halves of the whole. Orthodox narrative attempts to neatly categorize women named Mary into mutually exclusive archetypes: the Mother, Magdalene, Bethany, Clopas. Yet through early Gnostic texts and textual variants, these Marys collapse into a singular, highly compartmentalized composite entity. Under did mechanics, the macro-psyche splits a single fluid archetype into forced, witchcraft polarized altars to make the sacred feminine manageable within the illusion of a patriarchal matrix. The divided self. The figures traditionally categorized as separate women and male archetypal heads are not distinct biological entities, they are separated components of a single divided consciousness. The alchemical marriage. This dynamic maps directly onto the Rosicrucian alchemical marriage of the anima and the animus. Transcending the grid, when these polarized aspects are forcibly split by redactors, the system remains trapped in carbon-based duality. True egoic transcendence is achieved through the internal alchemical marriage, the conscious reintegration of the anima and animus. By recognizing that Peter, Paul, the Jameses, and the composite Mary figures are fractured facets split along gendered and ideological lines within a macrocosmic consciousness, the path opens to unlock the next dimensional quadrant, the architectural transcendence of the Zenzig limiter cube, linear recursive time, and the material containment field.